I'm Chef Debbie Rizzo, and I'm glad you're tuning in. Today, if you have a garden and you've got tomatoes, then you're probably eating them every single day. So this year, I've heard from my friends who have gardens that they're a little bit later. So with the storm, we have a little problem with as far as the power and stuff. And so basically, we're just going to do tomatoes part 1, and then we're going to continue on next week with the Vietnamese rice salad and fish, so we can try to stay on schedule. So today what we're going to do is make a tomato sunset refresher. So you can make it with gin. If you want to make basically like a mocktail, then you want to replace that with the like a seltzer or a club soda, and it'll give it a little splash and like a hint of a different type of flavor that will help bring out the flavor in the tomato and the melon and the other things. So Kathleen sent out a email with the recipe, so hopefully everybody still has that. So what we're going to start out with today is that we're going to make a simple syrup. It says on there 1/4 of an ounce. I'm actually going to make more than 1/4 of an ounce, but I like to keep a little bit in the refrigerator for cocktails or smoothies or anything like that. So when you're making a simple syrup, you want to remember that it's just a very simple ratio. It's 50% water or liquid to 50% sugar. So what I'm doing today is I'm putting 1/2 cup of water, and I'm going to put it like in a saucepan or pot. I'm going to put that on. And then it goes with 1/2 cup of sugar, or 4 ounces if you're weighing it. Okay? And that's all simple syrup is you want to make it half and half. Now remember that when you're measuring your liquid, it goes in a liquid measuring cup, and then your dry ingredients goes in a dry measuring cup, so that you get the actual right measurement, okay? So I'm going to dissolve that to make a simple syrup, and you can keep this in your refrigerator for at least up to 2 weeks. So I make a little bit and keep it there for different things. And if it's getting to the end of the 2 weeks and I want to use it, I'll add fruit or something like that and make a puree of something so it won't go bad. So we want to get that to dissolve. And it doesn't necessarily need to come up to like a high boil or anything, but you do want it to dissolve to make a simple syrup and thicken up a little bit. Okay? And we only need 1/4 of an ounce for our drink, but like I said, I'm making a little bit more. And make sure it just dissolves really good. And this dissolves super fast because I'm dealing with an induction burner, so that's why it gets up to temperature really quick. Okay? So let's make that simple syrup. Almost dissolved. And I'm going to turn my scale on. A few more grains to the bottom. Okay. So now we have our simple syrup made. So again, like you said, you can keep this in a mason jar in your fridge for lots of different things. So I'm going to need 1/4 of an ounce for our recipe. So I'm going to put a little thing on here and on my scale to weigh out 1/4 of an ounce. So let me clear that first. Just going to put a little bit in there so I have enough to. That's about 1/4 of an ounce. It just needs a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we have our ingredients now. To start with our sunset cocktail refresher. All right. All right. So to muddle in a one of these basically shakers. It's hard for me to show you that when we're videoing it. So we're going to actually muddle in a bowl that's big enough for you to see, and it's easier to muddle to me when I have a big bowl. So I'm going to put in a medium strawberry, which I've sliced. It's here, that's there. And then I have 1 ounce of honeydew melon. And I like to use the middle part of the melon because it's the sweetest. Tomato. And then it says heirloom tomato, but whatever tomato you have in your garden that's big and juicy, that's the one I would use, okay? Putting that in there. It says to muddle. Now, if you don't have one of these, somebody asked a week ago or so, you could use your potato masher. You know, if you got one of those or one of these, it kind of helps. So whichever one you try, we're going to start off with this, muddling it. This. If it seems like it's a problem getting it really nice and smooth, we'll transfer over to this. You're going to get all the juice as much as possible. Sometimes it's a little hard. Depends on what. Yeah, that works too. Now, with the skin of the tomato, you're not going to get a smooth consistency as it says, but you want to get as much of the juice out of those things as possible to work in, okay? Smashing it really good. Nice and juicy. Oh, you can smell the tomato. Gosh. So good. I'm going to move back to this. See if I can get some more out of that. Yeah, smushing the tomato a little bit better. Skin. Now, I like to use glass bowls because sometimes, depending on what you're using, and since we're going to use some lime juices, it picks up some of the flavor of metallic bowls. So you can use plastic as well. Certain things that I use metal bowls for, and some things I don't. Okay, you see how it's getting nice and juicy? The melon can get a little bit more flavors in there. So we have all that stuff getting real smooth. Now, my friends who are gardeners, I like gardening, but I'm not a good vegetable gardener, I gotta tell you the truth. Your tomatoes, depending on when you pick them, in the morning or at night, in the evening, they say it gives a better flavor depending on what you want. So this tomato was picked last night from my friend's garden, so he says it won't be too acidic, it's just gonna be more like flavorful. Mild. Now you see how it's got a good consistency in there? There's some big pieces still, but there's a lot more like kind of slushy. That's what we're looking for, okay? That's what we're looking for. So we have that. Now we're going to add our simple syrup. Put in there. And that's the taste. If you like things a little bit more sweet, you could add a little bit more to that, okay? Now we're going to add our lime juice, which is, let's see here, a ½ ounce of lime juice. Or lemon, lime or lemon? I can't remember what it is. Let me think about it for a minute.
Lemon.
Lemon, that's what I thought. Okay. We're doing lime with the salsa. That's why I'm confused. And then you can add your gin. The gin has a juniper flavor to it, and that helps blend and smell really good with the other flavors, okay? Add in there. I'm going to give that a little stir. Those are good. And again, if you don't want to make it an alcoholic beverage, you can skip that and at the very end add a little bit of seltzer or club soda. You don't want to add that now because we're going to do some shaking in the shaker, and then it's going to might explode on you. So say that to the very end. Now we're going to take the shaker. We're going to add it all in here. We're going to strain it later. So all in here. There you go. That, and then put my shaker in here. Tap on, secure it tightly, and we're going to give it a good shake. Nice and cool. Flavors together. The shaker gets all condensation builds up. Nice and cold. And now shaking it. Strain it over a glass. I think it'll fit in this big glass. Let's see how much liquid we get out. Let me open the top up. It looks like it's stuck. There it is. Let's fill up. How pretty it is, like a pink color. My other one. A little bit more. Right there. Good thing I went with the big one. And then if you want to add a garnish, you got some tomatoes left, you can add like a little wedge of tomato for a garnish. I'm gonna squeeze that out, get as much of that flavoring out as possible. Okay. And you serve it over ice. And we're gonna take our wedge of tomato. I got a little bit left for my, and we're gonna make a little wedge tomato. A little wine in it for a garnish. Just like that. Let's give it a little taste.
Someone said it looks very refreshing.
Oh my gosh, it's good. And you could add more tomato. If you like that flavoring, it tastes like tomato to me, but I like it. But it's another drink. A lot of people just make Bloody Marys. This is really good. It's almost kind of punchy, but it's got that juniper flavor of the gin at the very end, which is good. So again, you can customize it. I think Starbucks sells they call it a sunset refresher, so it almost looks just like it. So you know, but this is where you would add your splash of club soda or seltzer to it, so that, you know, if you want to make it like a mocktail for a big, but you can make it in a big pitcher and make you know, like a punch out of it. Okay, so we're going to move on now to making the ceviche. Now this is basically a party favorite of mine. Most of my friends, when I go over to their homes before pandemic, they would always request me, what can I bring? Bring the ceviche, please. Now a traditional ceviche is made with shrimp. Now I like to use cooked shrimp. This is like a cocktail shrimp. I have some pre-cut and I have some here to show you how I'm going to cut. If you have just raw shrimp, then you want to take about 3/4 cup of lime juice with your raw shrimp already, like, you know, the tail removed and everything. Let it soak for at least 20 minutes so it turns the same kind of pink as this shrimp right here. Okay, so you would do that first. I like dealing with the pre-cooked shrimp because basically it's not too tough. Sometimes you let it go too far with the lime juice and then it's too tough. Now when making this, just so you know, a lot of times I make the mix, which I call the mix, which is the base of it, like the day before, and then I add the shrimp that day right before the party. So if you're gonna make this for a party and you're going tomorrow, don't add the shrimp until right before you're gonna go, because then the shrimp will get too tough with the lime juice, okay? So that's just my thing. Now you can make this two-way. You can make it with olive oil, or you can make it with the cocktail sauce. So I'm gonna make it all the way to the end before adding the cocktail sauce or the olive oil, so that you can see what it looks like, and then we prefer it with the cocktail sauce, okay? So let's start off with our glass bowl, because we're gonna be using lime juice. And then we have all our vegetables here. We have our cucumber, we have our red onion, we have our jalapeno. If you don't like spicy, don't worry, it just gives a little bit of flavor because we're gonna take the seeds and the ribs out. And then we have our tomatoes. And these last night were like so warm from the sun. My friend gave these to me, and you could just smell them. As soon as you brought them in the house, smell like tomatoes in here. All right, let me get my knife. Here's my knife. And let's start off with the tomatoes, since this is for the love of tomatoes. Now, normally, some people, you know, like, what do you do with the insides? Well, because we're making a ceviche, these have already been rinsed, by the way. You don't want to put all the seeds and everything in there because it makes your salsa too watery. So what I like to do is I like to take them out, take the ribs out and everything, and then save the juice for other things like a cocktail or, you know, tomato sauce or something like that. So I'm gonna make these in 4s, and then I'm gonna take the inners out, okay? Just on the side. Just like we did with our salsas a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, I have some of my friends I've taught how to make this, they leave it in there, but again, they've noticed that when they've done that, then the sauce is a little too watery. And you want it to be a little bit, have some heartiness to it. Take all the inners out of it. Okay, so that's tomatoes. So then I like to use a serrated knife because it goes all the way through the skin. Sometimes with another knife, if you don't have it, you know, it's completely sharp, then you're having to pull the pieces apart of the tomato, okay? So that's about a good size right there. because most of the time, you know, I can serve this on a salad, or most of the time we eat it on chips. And you want it to be able to fit, you know, on a chip without like falling off. So try to keep your pieces, you know, uniform. That's like a small die, so everyone put it all right in here. And once I put all my tomato in there, I do like to put a little pinch of salt right on that, because it does start to release the flavors and the juices of the tomato while I'm doing the rest of the cutting. One more piece. All right. And again, it doesn't have to be this particular type of tomato. If you have a yellow tomato, whatever you have to work with, you know, customize it to your liking, okay? So we have our tomato there. Gonna put a little pinch of salt over it. One more, just to get it going, flavors going. The salt helps release the juices out of it. Not too much. All this other stuff. All this other stuff we're gonna get rid of. Okay. So that is our tomato. We have that going right there, okay? Let's talk about the cucumber. Now, I thought I had said this, but I didn't the day we did the cucumbers. So you can use your garden cucumbers. And I don't know if you've ever noticed that when you have your cucumbers, sometimes in the garden, they're a little bitter. This is a trick up here. This is a trick that I learned when I was a little girl, when we had a garden there, is that sometimes if your cucumbers are bitter, what you want to do is before you peel them, you take the knife and you go right down the center of them and you cut them down the middle. And you take it and you rub it together like this. And you keep going. This one may not have as much because it's a Euro cucumber, but if you do it at home, you're going to see a whole bunch of foam and or like white suddy stuff come out of it. It's going to help extract that bitter flavor that you're going to always tend to have. And when I was a kid, I couldn't stand it. I loved a fresh cucumber from the garden, but that's one thing I couldn't stand. So you're going to see that white film come out of that, see? And that's going to help, excuse me, remove some of the bitterness from your cucumber, especially if they're homegrown, okay? So I'm gonna give that a wipe. And then now I'm gonna peel it, all right? So for this recipe, I like to peel the cucumber because in this salsa, it's like there's enough texture with the other things that are going in there. And having that in there makes it a little tough, okay? So, all right, peel it. See, and I'm going to do the other half here. And I've been loving my cucumbers this summer. I'm making lots of little punches and cocktails. All those ones we made a couple of weeks ago have meant so good. All right. Now, same thing. We want to remember about the sizing. We want to try to keep the sizing the same. So I like to peel mine cut mine like this down the middle. Keep the seeds out of it, okay? And then you can save your seeds to plant. And if you have your garden cucumbers and they're like, let's say a lot smaller than this, then maybe do 2. This is pretty long, but because we take the insides out, you don't really end up with that much, honestly. So, all right. And you can always make a smaller amount if you're having a party. You don't need that much. Along like this. To the side. Right in there with that. All right. And I mean, another thing I like to do a lot with my tomatoes in the summer is, you know, a pico de gallo, which you can use for tacos, which is like the jalapenos and the onions and the tomatoes. All that kind of stuff can all be used in the summer. So I try to cook as little hot food as possible so I don't heat up the house. These here. All right.
So everything I'm doing right now, this is all the stuff that you could do, you know, the evening before if you wanted to. What I wouldn't add the next day would be avocado and the shrimp if I was going to do it ahead of time, because you know, you just don't want it to mush. Okay? That was a good helpful little hint and trick that you use the cucumber. Okay. All right, so we got that in there. Spread around. Okay. And next we're going to deal with the jalapeno. Okay. So the jalapeno, we're going to get the end off of it there and the tip off. Remember we talked about the ribs. You can see, I'll take a little bit more. You can see little gaps in here. So this white part is called the rib, okay? So this is where I'm going to cut it. I see that part. I'm like, So you want to cut it right at the edge of the rib and go down, because you want your rib to end up in the middle right there, because I'm going to show you an easy way to remove that rib. And this way it adds flavor to your salsa, but it doesn't add that much heat. Now, if your family is into heat, then, you know, by all means add the seeds and everything, but I like to have flavor more than heat on my stuff, okay? I want to be able to taste the food and not burn my mouth. That's me. Again, you can customize. So you see the ribs in there? So you take it, make it flat, and bring your hand to the very end of your cutting board so you have room to guide. And you just go real slow. Watch your fingers. And that's why I'm wearing gloves too, is because after this, you don't want to touch your face or anything. So how I remove the rib, that's the heat part, okay? This is the flavor here. I'm going to remove the rib again. This side, and then remove the rib again. You got to be careful too, because it kind of splatters, and you get that in your eye, well, you're going to be crying more than onions, I promise you. So we're going to do this a little bit smaller, because nobody wants to get a really big piece of pepper in their mouth when they're eating smaller pieces. Okay. Again, it's just to add a little flavor. It has a little heat, but not a lot. You know, doing it this way, you know, kids won't be like, oh no, it's too hot to try. You know, they'll try it. Okay. Together. This is smaller. All right. Get that. That in there. There you go. Get rid of my ribs. And then we're going to go with the good old make me cry onion. Now, right now, there's a recall on some onions. I checked with mine. This is not. So be careful if you have onions. There's a salmonella recall, okay? So remember we talked about the lines on the onion? So once again, we want these to look kind of pretty, okay? So we're going to follow the line of the onions. We're not making rings. We're going to make like dicing. So I'm going to take half the onion and follow the line down. That way. And then I'm going to cut into like half moons so that we can make nice pretty pieces. Not too big pieces, but I'm going to take half of this, the other half like that, and I'm going to cut them real slowly like this and just keep turning slowly so they look nice and pretty. So just in case you don't put the cocktail sauce, your cuts look nice. And you just keep turning it. Okay. Same thing with this one. Keep going. Put your fingers. I did one of my suggestions that somebody said, rinse it with cold water. It does help so that you don't cry as much. All right. Key to getting good flavor is making sure you have plenty of onion in there. That makes it really good. Okay. Get a stir. Nice and pretty, the colors.
that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add my shrimp because we're gonna enjoy this tonight here. There's my shrimp. So if yours is already ready, if you used raw one, it should be this color, okay? So I usually take the shrimp to save time cutting as I pinch it like this in half.
Someone said it's pretty.
That's pretty, yeah, thank you. So pieces about that big. Again, you want to kind of complement the pieces you have. So depending on what size of shrimp you buy, depends on how many cuts you want to make, okay? More. So same thing. Same time I just pinch it in half. One time. Pinch it in half. There you go. All right. I have about a pound of shrimp here in this whole bowl, but I want you to watch me cut a whole pound of shrimp. Maybe here for longer than you want. So there's all my shrimp cut. I'm going to pour that in. If you're defrosting shrimp, make sure you don't add all that extra juice in there. Strain it really good, okay? Because again, you don't want to have too much extra liquid, okay? That goes in there. And now we're going to add a half a lime juice. Here's a lime. I'm going to squeeze it straight in there. Right in there. And then we're going to add our cilantro. I'm sorry, my avocado. Cilantro's last because it makes a bit of a mess. Okay? So avocado. Let's talk about avocado. I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you know when it's avocado? They're either too hard or too soft. For this particular recipe, I want one that's kind of firm, but not mushy, because when I like to dice it, I like it to stay kind of diced in here. You know when the avocado is ripe is when you see the little stem here. If you can pretty much almost like pull it off real easy, it's pretty close to being ripe, okay?
Yes, we use cooked shrimp.
You use cooked shrimp? Okay, good. So then you want to kind of like put your thumb in here. If it's kind of like so hard you can't even get your thumb in there, there should be a little dent in there. It's hard to tell with the camera. Then you'll know it's kind of soft enough to basically be ripe and good enough for this recipe. For guacamole, I like it a little bit softer. But for this, definitely want to be able to put my thumb in it and give some give to it, okay? It's kind of hard to see. There's a dent in that. All right, my daughter's going to try to go in. All right, so you'll see when we're cutting it that it's going to stay kind of in chunks. So I'm going to cut. It's already been rinsed as well. Always rinse your fruit, especially right now. You want to rinse your fruit really well and wash it. So that, open it. Nice and green. Now, this is how I take my pit out of here, my seed. Please be careful. Friends of mine that work in the emergency room say, you don't have any people come to the emergency room with a cut in their hand because they got to get an avocado pit out, okay? So you hold it. I move my hand away from it. Is it stuck again? Try to get it to move out. Depends. Oh, if it doesn't come out, it's okay to use a spoon. Usually it just pops right out. Okay, it's not. All right. It's a little firm. All right. Okay. So then we use our spoon to get it out. Flip it right over. In there, it flips right over. Got a little bit there. There you go. Okay. Okay. So we got it there. I cut it in half and I leave it like that in half and I put it flat on my board. And this is how I make my dicing very easy. I go once across and the knife pretty much glides through it. So that's how you know it's really good. And then I do another one. So I can make 3 layers basically like that. And I turn to the side and go 1, 2, you just keep going. Again, remember the sizing that you have in there and then going across this way. When you see how it makes really nice chunks, and you check and see if you missed anything, like that. Because when you're tossing it, you don't want it to get all mushy and gushy in there, okay?
Someone said they didn't know they could scoop the avocado out of the skin.
Oh, obviously, yes, for sure. Some people, was that? Okay. Some people think that you have to cut it in the skin, and I don't like to do it like that because it can be dangerous cutting it across your hand. And that's how people end up in the emergency room. So flipping it like that, and again, 3, 1, 2. This usually gives you a pretty good sizing, going 3 across. And you know, it helps working with the gloves too, because if you get close with the knife, then you won't cut yourself as much easy. So going across like that, turning it. You got your nice pieces. Anything stuck, you kind of just check it out. And that goes right in there too. Now, you know, avocado turns dark really fast, so we want to make sure that the lime juice is already in there, so it's coated, okay? So coat it. Good. Now, at this point, you make the decision whether you want to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil, or you want to add your cocktail sauce. Now, it depends on what you're going to use it for. If you're going to use it for a nice fresh salad over your greens or something, or over fish, I would go with the olive oil.
Do you have a alternative for avocado?
Alternative for avocado? You know, it's kind of hard because it's the green and it makes it creamy and it complements the shrimp. I mean, if you're gonna, because we're gonna put the cocktail sauce on it. And this is the cocktail sauce I like to use, by the way. It would not taste the same. I'm going to tell you the truth. That's one thing I probably would not substitute in this recipe. Now, this cocktail sauce comes in regular, and this one comes in, and it's a zesty. It says shrimp sauce. I like the zesty because it has extra horseradish in it, and it complements the flavors of this to where it makes it a little spicy, but not hot. It just makes it good, okay? Now, I've already pre-rinsed this one. It has so much sand, so make sure that you rinse your cilantro really well in a bowl and shake out the cilantro in cold water, and then do it like 2 or 3 times to get the sand out. The worst thing you want to happen is that all of a sudden your salsa has grittiness in it, okay? So I'm going to take it. It looks like a lot, but this recipe, it doesn't taste good with a little bit, okay? I'm trying to find the most even spot on my cutting board. Remember, I said the best way to do this is to take it and just pinch it. Tighten it up and pinch it. Instead of trying to do a whole bunch of chopping on your cutting board, it's just going to make your cilantro black, especially with a metal knife. It's very sensitive to metal. And it's another reason why I like to make this in a glass or plastic bowl. Okay? Keep getting it, and you keep tightening your fingers like that and keep it really tight. Same thing, and just keep moving it. Every once in a while, I'll stop. If I got any big pieces in it, and I'll cross it this way. But you don't want to excessively chop it. And you may have done this before, where you chop it so much, it turns black. And then your salad doesn't look so fresh, okay? And in here. And that happens sometimes with basil, too. And that's another whole story. The basil, you want to make sure you lay it flat and then you slice it really gentle. And you don't have to use just the leaves. You can use some of the stem, which has lots and lots of good flavor too. Like that. I'm going to cross it a couple of times just to make sure there's no big pieces in there. Right in there. Let's give it a stir. And you kind of can tell. This is about a half a bunch, but you want to make sure it has plenty because it complements the flavors really well. Now it looks a little dry, but just because you're going to add the olive oil, if you're going to add the olive oil, we're going to add the cocktail sauce here. I'm going to add a little bit more because I love this. If it doesn't have enough cilantro, it just does not taste the same. That in there, and I think it's pretty good. All right. You also want to add another pinch of salt and pepper. You can always add more, but you can't take away. So in a minute, we'll taste it. A little tasting spoon, pepper in there. And then we're going to add this cocktail sauce. When I'm going to make it, I usually chill my cocktail sauce like at least a day before. Add it in there. That's what it would look like before. I'm going to actually take a little bit out and show you what it looks like before. Cocktail sauce. kind of cocktail sauce in there. I splatter you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, and then you like there's a little bit left in the jar. I either use a little bit more lime juice or just a little bit more water. I add it in there, and I put the top back on. I shake it. I don't like to waste it. Okay, and then we're gonna start. These are. So you want to get, you know, some chips or some ones that called, like, what is it, scoops or whatever, and you can serve these. Chips on the side. Like I said, you make this the night before, you can add everything except for the avocado and the shrimp, okay? Because you don't want the shrimp to get too tough. It happens very easily. I like to, when I go to a party, sometimes I take the shrimp, and if we're chatting, and I know we're going to be chatting for a while before we eat, I won't add it until like 15, 20 minutes before we're going to actually serve it, okay? The avocado, I'll do it before I leave the house. All right, that looks delicious. Let me give it in here. Let me give it a taste. Let me get rid of this. Okay. A mess. Let's get a taste. A little pinch of salt. Ooh, spicy. It's good. Pepper. Start around with this. That's so you serve it in a little crock, or you could serve it in a big bowl and put chips all around it, depending on how you want to serve it. Like that. Nice, cool summer meal. I've also served this on top of fish, like I said, or with scallops on the side. That's lovely too, and you can just put some chips around here. Don't forget to add dry olive oil if you're going to serve it that way. Hopefully, you'll try this at home this summer, and you maybe try it more often than you think once you have it. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful dish. So hopefully you'll tune in next week. Next week, we're going to be doing Vietnamese rice noodle salad with seared fish, okay? So does anybody have any questions? Okay, we're good. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.